Picture this. You're sitting at a red-checkered picnic table in your ex-husband's family backyard, trying to make small talk about potato salad while your stomach churns with anxiety. The Arizona sun is beating down mercilessly, and you're questioning every decision that led you to this moment. You're here for one reason only. Your 15-year-old daughter, Sophie, begged you to come to her grandmother's 4th of July barbecue. "Please, Mom," she'd said with those dark eyes that mirror your own. "I know it's awkward, but I want both sides of my family there." So here I am, Maya Chen, 34 years old, 8 months divorced, and trying to prove to myself that I can handle 2 hours in the same space as the people who spent 3 years making me believe I was the problem in every situation. I'm a marketing coordinator now. A job I love, by the way, something Derek always said I'd never be good at. Funny how wrong he was about that, too. Across the yard, my ex-husband, Derek Walsh, is holding court near the grill, his perfectly styled hair catching the sunlight as he flips burgers with the confidence of someone who's never doubted his place in the world. At 36, Derek has that real estate agent charm down to a science, the kind of smile that sells houses and manipulates emotions with equal effectiveness. He's wearing his favorite polo shirt, the navy blue one that brings out his eyes, and for a split second, I remember why I fell for him 10 years ago. Then I remember why I left. Standing beside him like a devoted apprentice is his new wife, Brittany. 28 years old with the kind of Instagram-perfect blonde hair that takes 2 hours to achieve, but looks effortlessly natural. She's a fitness influencer with 60,000 followers who document her morning smoothies and sunset yoga poses. Brittany married Derek just 6 months after our divorce was finalized, and she has this way of marking her territory that's both subtle and unmistakable. Right now, she's adjusting his collar with the kind of possessive affection that screams, "mine," to anyone watching. But the person I'm really here for is Sophie Chen Walsh, my daughter, who's currently sitting at the kids' table despite being 15 and taller than most of the adults here. She's an honors student with her father's stubborn streak, and what I hope is my sense of justice. Sophie has been unusually quiet today, which isn't like her. Normally, she's the one cracking jokes and mediating family tension, with the kind of emotional intelligence that sometimes makes me wonder who's really the parent in our relationship. Then there's Patricia Walsh, Derek's 58-year-old mother, the unofficial queen of this suburban kingdom. Patricia raised 3 boys with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove, and she's never quite forgiven me for breaking up the family. She's the kind of traditional matriarch who believes wives should adapt, accommodate, and never ever air dirty laundry in public. Today she's wearing her best hostess smile, but I can feel her disapproval radiating across the patio like heat waves. I thought the worst part of my divorce was over. The paperwork was signed, the custody arrangement was settled, and I'd finally found my own apartment where I could breathe without someone analyzing my every move. I'd started therapy, reconnected with friends Derek had systematically driven away, and begun to remember who I was before I became his wife. I thought I'd survived the hardest part. I was wrong. Because sometimes the real battle doesn't happen in lawyers' offices or mediation rooms. Sometimes it happens on a sunny afternoon in suburban Phoenix, when your ex-husband decides he's tired of playing nice and your daughter has been watching everything more carefully than anyone realized. What I didn't know, as I sat there forcing myself to smile and nod at Patricia's questions about my little apartment and my cute job, was that Sophie had been documenting things, important things that would change everything in ways I never could have imagined. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, I need to tell you how a simple family barbecue became the day my 15-year-old daughter taught me that sometimes the people we're trying to protect are actually the ones protecting us. Patricia's backyard is exactly what you'd expect from a woman who's hosted this same 4th of July barbecue for 23 years running. Red, white, and blue streamers hang from every surface. There's a dessert table that could feed a small army, and the American flag bunting she pulls out of storage each year is draped across the patio like a patriotic security blanket. The whole scene screams suburban perfection, which is precisely the image Patricia Walsh has spent her entire life cultivating. I'm sitting on the same weathered deck chair I occupied during every family gathering throughout my marriage to Derek. Back then, I used to help Patricia set up, arriving early to arrange the folding chairs and fill the coolers with ice. Today I showed up exactly on time with a store-bought pie, because showing up empty-handed would have given Patricia ammunition, but making something homemade would have felt too much like trying to win back approval I no longer wanted. My current life feels like a different universe compared to the woman who used to stress for weeks about these gatherings. I have a small 2-bedroom apartment in Tempe now, 20 minutes across town, but it might as well be on another planet. The walls are painted colors I actually chose. A soft sage green in the living room, pale yellow in Sophie's room. There are plants on the windowsill that are somehow still alive, and books scattered on surfaces without anyone criticizing the clutter. The effect is instantaneous and devastating. Derek goes pale so fast I'm genuinely concerned he might pass out. Brittany's perfectly glossed mouth drops open in a little "oh" of surprise. Patricia, who has spent the last 20 minutes nodding along with her son's character assassination of me, immediately sits down so hard her chair squeaks against the patio stones. She reaches for her wine glass with shaking hands. "Sophie, put that phone away right now," Derek says, and for the first time today, his voice cracks. The smooth confidence he's been projecting evaporates like smoke, replaced by something raw and panicked. My mind is racing. Screenshots of what? What did Derek do last summer that my 15-year-old daughter documented? And more importantly, why didn't she tell me about it? "Why?" Sophie asks with the kind of innocent curiosity that's absolutely lethal in this context. Afraid Brittany might learn something new about the man she married. The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Brittany's head snaps toward Derek, her Instagram-perfect composure cracking just slightly around the edges. I can see her trying to process what's happening, trying to figure out if this is typical teenage drama or something more serious. Derek's brothers are exchanging looks I can't interpret, but their wives are leaning forward slightly, the way people do when they sense gossip incoming. Even the neighbors have stopped their side conversations to focus on our table. "Sophie," I find my voice, though I'm not sure what I'm planning to say. Part of me wants to know what she's talking about, and part of me is terrified. "Honey, maybe—" "No, Mom," Sophie says, turning to look at me with an expression that's equal parts protective and determined. "I'm tired of watching you take responsibility for things that weren't your fault. I'm tired of watching him rewrite history just because you're too nice to correct the lies." She looks back at Derek, who's now gripping the edge of the picnic table like it's the only thing keeping him upright. "So, what's it going to be, Dad? Are you going to keep telling everyone how terrible Mom was? Or should I show them what you're really like when nobody's watching?" Sophie looks around the table one more time, taking in every face, her grandmother's wine-flushed cheeks, her uncle's uncomfortable shifting, Brittany's growing alarm, and her father's barely contained panic. Then she makes a decision that changes everything. She doesn't read from her phone. Instead, she sets it down on the table with a soft thud and looks directly at Derek. "I don't actually need to read anything, Dad. Everyone here is smart enough to understand without screenshots." The relief that flickers across Derek's face lasts exactly 2 seconds before Sophie continues. "You want to know why Mom seemed absent during your marriage? Let me tell you what I watched for 3 years. Her voice is steady, measured, like she's presenting a school report she's rehearsed 100 times. "Every time Mom tried to be involved in my school stuff, you told her she was doing it wrong. Remember parent-teacher conferences? You'd spend an hour before we left telling her all the ways she might embarrass me, all the stupid questions she better not ask. By the time we got there, she was so anxious she could barely speak. I feel like I'm watching myself from outside my body. My 15-year-old daughter is calmly dismantling her father's narrative with surgical precision, and I don't know whether to stop her or applaud." "Sophie, that's enough," Derek says, but his voice has lost all authority. He sounds like he's pleading. "No, it's not enough," Sophie continues, turning to address the rest of the family. "Uncle Mike, remember when Mom stopped coming to Christmas Eve dinner? Dad told everyone she was being antisocial, right? What he didn't tell you was that every time she tried to make plans with anyone, he'd suddenly have an emergency that needed her attention. When she finally gave up trying, he complained that she never wanted to socialize." Mike looks genuinely shocked. "Sophie, I don't think—" "And Grandma Patricia," Sophie says, swiveling toward her grandmother, who's gone very still in her chair. You always wondered why Mom seemed so scattered and emotional. Dad told you it was because she was naturally dramatic, didn't he? What you didn't know was that he was hiding her anxiety medication. The words hit the table like a bomb. Patricia's wine glass freezes halfway to her lips. He what? Patricia whispers. Last summer, when Mom was having panic attacks and couldn't figure out why, I watched Dad take her pills out of the medicine cabinet and put them in his desk drawer. When she couldn't find them, he suggested maybe she was becoming too dependent on medication and should try to manage her anxiety naturally. Brittany has gone completely white. Her hand moves unconsciously to her own purse, and I wonder what medications she might keep there, what support Derek might have already started offering her. Sophie turns back to Derek, who looks like he's aged 10 years in the last 5 minutes. But the best part, Dad, was when you called Mom's boss to complain about her unreliability. Remember that? You told Mr. Henderson that Mom was going through some personal issues and might need extra patience at work. What you actually did was sabotage her job because you were angry that she was starting to feel confident about something. Sophie, stop. Derek's voice breaks completely. You don't understand. I understand that you spent 3 years systematically destroying Mom's confidence and then blamed her for being broken, Sophie says, and there are tears in her eyes now, but her voice never wavers. I understand that you convinced everyone, including Mom, that she was the problem. And I understand that you're doing the exact same thing to Brittany, but she doesn't see it yet. Every eye at the table turns to Brittany, who's staring at Derek like she's seeing him for the first time. Derek, she says slowly, is this true? The question hangs in the air like smoke. Derek opens his mouth, closes it, opens it again. For the first time in the 10 years I've known him, Derek Walsh is completely speechless. Patricia sets down her wine glass with trembling hands. Derek, she says, and her voice is barely a whisper, tell me this isn't true. But Derek can't answer because we all know it is true. Every word of it. Sophie picks up her phone and looks at her father one last time. I do have screenshots, Dad, but I hoped I wouldn't need them. The silence that follows is deafening. The silence stretches for what feels like hours, but is probably only 30 seconds. Then Derek pushes back from the table so violently that his chair tips over, clattering against the patio stones. This is ridiculous, he says, but his voice is shaking and he won't make eye contact with anyone. Sophie's been brainwashed. Maya's turned her against me with her victim narrative. He's grasping for his old playbook, trying to flip the script one more time, but the words sound hollow even to him. Derek. Patricia's voice cuts through his rambling like a blade. My former mother-in-law stands slowly, her 70-year-old frame somehow commanding more authority than her 6'2" son. Sit down. Mom, you can't possibly believe. Sit down. Derek sits. Even Brittany looks stunned by the steel in Patricia's voice. Patricia looks around the table at her family, her neighbors, the ruins of her perfect 4th of July barbecue. When she speaks again, her voice is quieter, but no less powerful. 35 years ago, I taught my sons that men should be the head of their households. I taught them that women should be accommodating, supportive, and never challenge their authority. She pauses, looking directly at Derek. I taught them that a man's comfort was more important than a woman's voice. The admission hangs heavy in the summer air. I was wrong, she continues, and I see tears gathering in her eyes. Maya, I owe you an apology that's 3 years overdue. I watched my son tear you down, and I told myself it was normal marital conflict. When you started having panic attacks, I thought you were being dramatic. When you seemed withdrawn, I blamed you for not trying hard enough. I feel my own tears starting, but for the first time in years, they're not tears of shame or frustration. They're tears of relief, of validation I never thought I'd receive. I enabled this, Patricia says, turning back to Derek. I taught you that women exist to make your life easier, and when Maya couldn't do that because you'd broken her spirit, I helped you blame her for the breaking. Derek tries to speak, but Patricia holds up a hand that brooks no argument. The barbecue is over, she announces to the confused gathering. Everyone needs to go home and think about what we've witnessed here. As people begin to awkwardly gather their things and make their excuses, Brittany approaches me. Her Instagram perfect composure is completely gone, replaced by something raw and uncertain. "Maya," she says quietly, "can I ask you something?" I nod, not trusting my voice. The meditation app on my phone. Derek said I was spending too much time on self-help nonsense and that he deleted it to help me be more present. Was that the beginning? I tell her gently. It always starts small. She nods, tears spilling over her carefully applied mascara. I think I need to make some phone calls. 3 weeks later, Patricia calls to tell me that Brittany has moved out and filed for annulment. She's staying with her sister in California and has started therapy. Derek, according to Patricia, is furious and claiming that Sophie and I poisoned Brittany against him. He hasn't learned anything, Patricia says sadly, but I'm done enabling him. I've started seeing a counselor myself, Dr. Rodriguez specializes in family systems and generational patterns. I want to understand how I contributed to this cycle. The biggest revelation, though, comes from Sophie herself a few days after the barbecue. We're sitting in our little living room, sharing Chinese takeout and talking about the upcoming school year, when she looks up from her lo mein. "Mom, I need to tell you something about those screenshots." My chopsticks freeze halfway to my mouth. "What about them?" "I didn't actually have any," she admits. "I mean, I have some text messages where Dad was being awful to you, but nothing like what I threatened. I was bluffing." I stare at my daughter. This wise, fierce, protective person who somehow grew up while I wasn't looking. "Sophie, that was incredibly risky. What if he'd called your bluff?" She shrugs with teenage nonchalance. "I knew he wouldn't. Guilty people always assume you have more evidence than you actually do." I spent years thinking I had to protect Sophie from the truth about her father. It turns out she was protecting me. Sometimes the people we're trying to shield are actually our greatest allies. We just have to be brave enough to let them speak. And sometimes a 15-year-old has more courage than all the adults in the room combined. If this story resonated with you, you're not alone. Family dynamics can be complicated, and sometimes it takes incredible courage to speak up for what's right. Whether you're dealing with difficult relationships, supporting someone who is, or just need a reminder that truth has power, remember that your voice matters. Have you ever been in a situation where someone unexpected stood up for you? Or maybe you've been the one who had to find the courage to speak truth to family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This community is here to support each other, and if this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Every share helps these important conversations reach more people who need to know they're not alone. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss stories like this one. We're building a community where real experiences matter and where truth isn't afraid to show up at family barbecues. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the youngest person in the room has the biggest heart and the clearest vision. Until next time, keep standing up for what's right.